I just have a few things to say.
What's that?
Hey, brother.
Are you laughing at my brother?
How dare you?
Hey, Romano.
Is that why you slap my brother around in public?
He's slapping this intro around in public.
Whatever happened to Am I my brother's keeper, huh?
Hey, brother.
You're my older brother, and I love you.
Oh, he is truly his brother's keeper.
Monkey. Oh, I wish it was Monday so I could say it's Monkey Monday.
You could say that on Monday.
It's a familiar sound.
You could say it for Retroactive Monkey Monday.
Retroactive Monkey Monday.
Cheers, dude. How you doing?
Cheers. Happy Wednesday.
Yeah.
I like springing it on you where you just come over and we don't even catch up and it's just like, sit down, we're podcasting.
It's a good technique.
I mean, can I ask you what you did today?
No.
No, don't tell me. You asked me what I don't want to know.
I had a good day, bro. Tomorrow is at my place of business, which is not to say that it's my place of business, but the place
You
at which I do
own
business. We have a show coming to Worcester tomorrow, an orchestra from the United Kingdom.
Ooh, fancy.
Yes, indubitably. And they're doing Dvorak's New World Symphony, which I'm going to sneak in, listen to Movement 2 for. You know that one, right?
My ability to recall classical music by name is tough.
So I would bet, given our arcs as childhood musicians, this piece would make you cry very easily, and it would sneak up on you the first time, and you would teary be like, "What's the name of this one again?" And then you would look for it and try to have it in all these different forms.
So it's New World Symphony by Dvorak, Movement 2?
Yeah, the Adagio movement. It's the
What instrument is playing that melody?
in the orchestral arrangement that it was composed for. That is first played, I think, by like the English horn or the oboe.
Okay.
So it sounds very classical first, and then it comes back. And you know the bridge, right? The like it.
I think so.
It's like
it's tough without the entire context of the song,
Fair.
obviously, but
so really quick. I don't think too much of classical music history is interesting enough to talk about, but this piece is super cool. Dvorak was the first director of the first school of music in America.
oh, that is kind of cool.
Came over from Czechoslovakia. I'm not sure what it was called then.
So he was the first most disposable teacher position of all time.
Sure, yeah.
I'm sorry.
The first butt of music teacher jokes.
Knowing a lot of music teachers, it's tough to not make that joke, but I respect all of you very, very much, and you are... I think I deserve the one that got less enthusiastic there, but...
Way to throw all music teachers under the bus.
No, music teachers are what got, I think, both of us into music, so I would be the most hypocritical person on earth to have any hard feeling towards them at all.
I suppose.
I love music teachers. They're great. I have met some that are wacky, but
that sort of goes hand in hand.
it does.
I'd say the ones that really led us are, well, what'd you just realize?
We should have Franz and Joanne here on the podcast.
Oh, that
dude.
would, yeah, goals. Add it to the list.
Oh, that would be
Franz and Joanne
Yes.
Cooter.
Franz, Joanne, a.k.a. the GOAT.
Yeah. The goats, probably. Plural. I guess that would still be GOAT. Greatest works for plural,
Yep.
too. Anyway, Dvorak, they developed the new school in New York City. It's the first higher institution of music learning. And they're like, who should direct us? America has no history of composed music yet. We've just got racist, like country songs, like Camptown Races sing that song. Like that's my professor at school used that song as an example of like what American music was like before they were
Right.
like, let's start a school and actually start composing and
Let's
stuff.
go to the plains and kill them Indians.
Yeah, oh Susanna, don't you cry for me. Like all
Yeah.
those songs. Like she'll be coming around the mountain when she comes.
We're building trains
Probably
with
also
Chinese
from that.
immigrants. Building railroads with the Chinese immigrants.
So
I'm
So he-
so proud of you.
so they're like, Dvorak's killing it. Maybe he'd be interested in coming over to America
Get
and
this man a job.
and helping us figure out what America's music should sound like. And he was very enthusiastic about that offering. He came over, and before he took the position, he just traveled around the country in search of like
The sounds
the
of
authentic
America.
sound of America. And because he came from like a European, he was searching for sounds that would eventually become familiar sounds. And he was most taken by Native American music that he heard and Negro spirituals that he heard.
Nice.
And so the New World Symphony is 4 movements. And I think mostly 1, 3, and 4 are all Native American in their nature. Like the motifs and stuff that are in them are, they've just got kind of a tribal, like, consistent drum beat kind of sound to them. But movement 2 it's like developed from a spiritual that he had become familiar with. And there are versions of his piece, I think, that have lyrics, and it's called Going Home.
Oh, yeah, you have this on vinyl.
Yes. Yeah, Mom and Dad got me the
Yeah, I
Yo-Yo
remember-
Ma Silk Road
I remember
version.
that. Didn't he play that when we saw him?
Yes.
Yeah, that was dank.
Pretty baller.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
Why didn't you just say it was what Yo-Yo Ma played when we saw him?
Well, but you know, you have all this context.
I needed help. You just leaving me over here looking like a fool.
I think that's why it hits me super hard, though, is that it's structured like a spiritual or a hymn.
Yeah.
So it's more song-like than all the other
It has
movements.
it has like emotional movement that's
Yep.
contextually relevant to us
Yep.
with what we know to
Yep.
do the same.
And
Yeah.
it does exactly what a good piece of music should do. It like quietly establishes this melody that you like. It plays around with it a little bit. Then it changes course completely, goes minor, gets like sad and pensive, swells back up, modulates back
Tears.
to the original melody. Full orchestra's in now, and it knocks you on your ass every time. That's like a
Sell me this music harder.
I guess my point is,
If you've never listened to classical music, just have Ethan talk to you about the New World Symphony Adagio movement.
start there. Yeah, that's a good one. For anyone who's like, I want to listen to an orchestra, but they seem boring and I don't know where to start, that's a pretty good place to start.
Do you advise when people go to orchestras for the first time that they watch closely or maybe even shut their eyes and just kind of listen and take in the music?
I don't think I've ever been asked that question.
I say it because I've found that as I got older, I could appreciate it more when I wasn't looking.
And here are your tickets, sir. How would you suggest I enjoy this?
Well, here's a blindfold. Here's a sensory deprivation tank for you to enjoy the show in.
Well, that leads to an interesting conversation. Classical
I'm
music.
sorry, now I have a picture in my head of people walking into a show and getting a blindfold with their ticket. Like, that's hilarious.
There might be a market for that.
Human music.
They're like in Colorado and other cannabis friendly states, they do like series of 420 friendly performances
Yeah.
in outdoor spaces. I think that's a great idea.
I do
think
too.
I think you could do like drunk symphonies because some
Oh.
people get drunk and get emotional when they listen to music.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people that get drunk and get rowdy.
But pin in that. I think you could also do like a safe psychedelics thing too. That would be really, really cool with classical music. I'm open to the idea that it could be a cool thing. Other variables pending.
I love that the video game symphony market has blown up recently.
Yeah. Classical, like orchestral music still
Yeah.
has really strong demand in very different parts of the music and arts worlds now, which is really cool.
Like
but
being part of the touring Halo orchestra would be awesome.
Be a good gig.
Just looking at his
I think we nailed it. You directly addressed though.
Sorry.
He's onto movement too.
And then there's all the Smash Bros music, and there's all the Mario Kart music.
Dude, that free Smash
Oh my
Brothers
God.
CD we got in the mail from Nintendo Power once of the symphony orchestra performance of all the Melee music.
That's inspiring
You
shit.
can't burn out a CD, but we came pretty close with that one, I think.
Yep. And a lot of people were like listening to the Ocarina of Time soundtrack as though
That's
it were
also great.
real instruments that weren't shitty MIDI. If
Shitty MIDI.
you released a sample pack of all of those classic video game tones that those chips were limited to, and just called it shitty MIDI, and it was like a plug-in as a virtual instrument.
Just start this website and do it, man. Shitty MIDI.
Plus we have
Download clips, video games. Bless you.
No one
And
can
also,
no one is ever allowed to use this mic again.
That's fair.
I'm sorry.
Stake your claim, dude. But your question made me think of something I've heard Chris Thiele talk about extensively with classical music. He's got a lot of thoughts, heated opinions on classical music and how society ingests it today and how audiences should behave or feel or do when it comes to like being at a classical show.
Yeah.
He tells this story in one interview that you can find on YouTube of him being at a symphony show and just hearing the strings take like a waterfall cascading thing. And he's sitting in one of the box seats on the side, and he just goes like out of just like, I can't believe how beautiful that was. And people behind him were like, shut the fuck up.
Oh my God.
And he was like, even that, like a reaction that was so natural that like I couldn't even help myself, and still it was just an exhale, basically. That's too loud for people sitting at a classical show. And the caveat in my brain, the devil's advocate point, I guess, is that like the major selling point for a lot of orchestras is like, we do this, it's acoustic, it's in this beautiful space that's built for acoustics, it's this old school thing. So you have to, as a crowd, be almost silent for an equitable listening experience for everybody, because depending on how close you are,
there's no
completely
control
different.
of the volume outside of the performer.
Yeah. And I know that, like, you know, we know by now that the standard for rock and other modern genres of music shows, the decibel level is like straight up damaging to your ears without protection.
Above 120 decibels.
But one pro of that from an audience standpoint is that it drowns out ambient noise that would otherwise be distracting in a quiet environment.
It like forces engagement with the music.
Yeah. And maybe like live classical music should be reconsidered as a thing for this reason, because audiences of classical music are just so stuffy and like it's
I think they get their rocks off a little bit from getting to be police for the audience themselves while being in the audience.
There's people like that for sure. But in general, it's like if one person coughing can throw off the attention of an entire audience of people from one moment musically, then like something's not working there that works in other places with other types of live entertainment.
I remember seeing my viola teacher at I think it was Anna Maria. No. Assumption College. They have that really cool like church glass kind of, it's not an amphitheater, but it's like a church building. It's like a long cathedral style layout where there's like, actually I guess it is a cathedral. There's there's pews that kind of form like a T shape around like a centralized zone where the orchestra was. Mm-hmm. And it was like I guess a traditional chamber orchestra, and they had like valveless French horns and stuff. Like all of these people were really good, and Solsky was playing, so like, you know, it was a real deal orchestra for sure.
Yeah.
And I remember I think it was like the early stages of maybe strep throat. I can't remember, but I couldn't stop coughing. And I was sitting there and I just couldn't stop.
Yeah.
And I actually had to like step out, and I felt really bad because like I was there to see my teacher, and like it sounded unbelievable. And after they had explained how interesting and difficult most of the instruments that were being played actually were to play, it was kind of like I got interested on a different level. It was like, oh shit, like as far as seeing unique shit, I kind of referenced Joe Petropalo's viola da gamba with like the sympathetic harmonic strings underneath.
Wow.
And just kind of being like, oh yeah, back in those days, classical music was like, well, this is the best we have, so we shall make experiments with this wooden box and strings. Let's add more.
I hope I don't get the bubonic plague.
This is a cursed instrument. Away with you.
Why is that rat running straight towards me?
Why is the rat playing my violin? Dun, 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 dun. I do like this idea of a little Italian mischievous music maker who's creating all the Baroque instruments that are like legendary today.
Yeah.
And he has like a ratatouille Remy of sorts.
Yeah. It probably took a long time for them to get the violin and the cello right.
Yeah. There were serious technological changes between our instruments today, and that like even the strings, like in their tension, or I wonder if the strings actually had the same tension and could produce the same pitch.
A great example of this is before pianos, it was harpsichords.
Oh, fuck a harpsichord.
And it's just funny that a harpsichord, like, it's the same instrument. It's just instead of the logical, like, let gravity and a key hammer a string.
Oh my God.
I just hit 3 drops at the same time.
But they were good because it was a harpsichord and you hit the
And a
spring.
boing.
And it was the audience gasp because it was a surprise.
I'll try not to make that mistake again. But before, like, they hadn't figured out the simple, like, oh, we can get louder and more musical playing by a hammer.
Yeah.
Then the harpsichord is all plucking.
Yeah.
So they built a piano, but the mechanism is just reverse mechanics of.
Is that true if you let a harpsichord's key, or if you don't let a harpsichord's key completely fall backwards after you've played it, it like won't make a note again because it has to like go past its like bottom pluck threshold in order to pluck the string again. Whereas a piano, if you strike the key just gently, it'll still strike it, but more gently. You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying. I think there's a bit of weighted like musicality to a harpsichord. I don't think it's like a.
I want to look
Like
at the harpsichord diagram.
My knowledge of the mechanism stops at just knowing that it's a piano, but it plucks instead of hammers.
Harpsichord mechanism. What do we have of a harpsichord mechanism? Looking at this
Did you
picture.
watch Wednesday?
Wednesday Addams?
The show, yeah.
No, I did not, but I've only heard good things. All
Ash
right.
and I did. It's just I'm only mentioning it because the music is all like
Harp.
It's all
right.
creepy minor harpsichord music.
So here's the key. It balances on a pin. Jack rail. What the hell? Tuning pins. All right, so that's like fine tuning for the string tension. So it has a nut, just like an instrument, nut and a bridge, hitch pin that holds it all, bent side tail, bottom rack guide pin. So when you hit the key, it's. I'm so confused. What the fuck? Oh, I see. This is a better way. This 3D version. Okay, so yeah, it like moves a needle past a string.
Yeah.
And then it has to fall back down past the string in order to strike it again.
Yeah.
Instead of letting gravity kind of assist it into a strike, a
Yeah.
percussive strike. Wow, that's fascinating.
Do you think the guy who invented the harpsichord was super pissed when some other dude invented the piano? Or the pianoforte, as it was called in those days? They probably weren't alive in the same century or something.
Well, that's a good point, but I bet the guy's ancestors were like, "Don't you fucking go near these keyed instrument market, dude. This is my shit." There's a part of me that is hopeful that they were collaborative, but those days,
No.
that there was no law.
No.
I should have looked at when it was made, the date. But Yeah, there were definitely no rules about. Yeah, I'm sure they were more cutthroat than you and I could even imagine.
Well, music in general was still a thing that only rich people enjoyed in their courts.
Yeah.
Most people
Yeah,
didn't
that's
even get
true.
to hear music ever,
Yeah.
unless the minstrel band of the king showed up in your pasture.
Yep. I like that pirate ships and Vikings would bring minstrel or musicians along just to keep up spirits.
Yeah.
It's like a football team having like hype music in the locker room.
Yeah, our species has known for at least a couple hundred years that it's good to have some people who can make music around.
Why does bald monkey dance? Why does bald monkey dance in patterns to music? We are monkey. We shall return to monkey. Welcome back to Familiar Monkey.
Yeah, man, classical music, I guess to answer your earliest question, I feel like it should be enjoyed however the hell you want to enjoy it. I would hope that the majority of people with ears would also be aware of their surroundings and not let their emoting interfere with the experience of other people to the extent, but I'd also ask the other people to not let your experience be so fragile that ambient noise of people around you enjoying it too are going to ruin it for you.
All right. Counter argument.
Sure.
You and I have been to shows where there's a couple of woo girls that have turned into girls.
Yeah.
Most recently, I was near one of them at the Cory Wong show, which up in the mezzanine of the House of Blues was a very intimate experience. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, where would you draw that line at inappropriate behavior?
That's going to be a show by show, venue by venue, artist by artist kind of question.
Right. Because I can sympathize with someone standing next to somebody screaming out of enjoyment and being just like, you have to stop. Like, that's inappropriate.
Yeah.
However, based on what I agree is somebody shushing someone else for breathing, I'd just be curious where you drew that line. Like,
I'll say personally, because I have a pretty short fuse in general, and I especially at a concert, it's like I've invested so much of myself and my life into being here to enjoy every moment as much as possible. It's,
right.
It's more of it's like it's always my high point of like whatever period of time in my life I'm seeing a show since the last time I did. Like,
yeah.
If it's a show I want to see, I'm there to enjoy it to the fullest extent possible. So if my experience is being affected by any variable that could be changed, I'm probably going to address it at some point. But if you're in a thick crowd and one person that's right near you is just in their own moment so much that they're repeatedly interfering with the attention of people around them, and I notice that I'm not the only one feeling that way, then I'll feel comfortable to politely address what's happening.
Excuse me. Can you please stop stomping on my feet as you dance to this music?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I also believe that like people, it's good to be patient, it's good to be tolerant, but people will be so much of those things that it allows something to ruin an experience for multiple people. So it's in the interest of the group to also try to step in and change what that is.
When was your last bad concert experience with a nearby audience member?
I don't know if it's the most recent, but the most memorable was Dan and I, and Sherry.
Word.
And I think Joey Rugo were all in the same crowd.
Whoa.
At the Paradise for Matt Corby a couple years ago.
Okay.
And the show is great, but Matt Corby's music, most of his songs are very dynamic and many border on like kind of quiet. Not really ever acoustic, but like
you will be my resolution.
yeah, exactly.
Earth music.
Yeah. And we were probably halfway through that set. And Matt Corby performs incredibly, but he's not a super active, high energy, moving around kind of showman when he performs.
He's pretty static.
He's static. He's just one member of the band. He's kind of always playing his voice, and
He's
sometimes
a
he picks up
vessel.
the flute. When he picks up the flute, it's awesome.
He's a vessel for his soul.
Yeah. But so this is just to say, like, Paradise is sold out, so it's slammed, and the crowd is rolling really well with like this kind of mid-range rock show energy. And this dude, this fratty Boston dude, is about halfway back in the crowd, and he starts in the
Hey,
breaks. He starts in the breaks yelling, "Almost cut my hair," which is a Crosby, Stills and Nash song that
What does this guy think it's a fucking cover show?
well,
Fuck this guy. I already don't like him.
well, yes, but pin in that is a cover that Matt Corby has put out into the world.
Okay, so it would be the equivalent of someone yelling at Lake Street Dive, do I Want You Back.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Calibrated.
So it starts off in the way that like drunk heckling kind of always does, where the first one is not full confidence yet. It's like
They needed to hear themselves do it first.
the crowd's quiet and the person is just above like inside voice volume, where they're like, "Almost cut my hair," and nobody reacts.
They're doing it for their friends at that point.
Matt Corby doesn't react. And he's taken a little bit too much time between the songs. So in a way, I feel like, this must not happen a lot, because those are the moments where you're vulnerable. And it's just
That dude felt the gap and put himself in the gap.
And like he didn't win, but he commanded the moment.
Yep.
Just one in a pool of 900 people. Like
He
just
was-
takes over the energy, and it sucks because everybody else, generally speaking, is like totally on the same page of like
Let him
amount
figure
of
it out.
Yeah. And then he just starts saying it over and over again, and then like Berkeley-ish people standing near us are turning around, being like, "Dude, shut the fuck up!" And that's just feeding in. You know, he's like, "Play the Crosby, Stills and Nash cover," and then at this point, Matt Corby says something very quietly like, "I'm sorry, I it's not in the set tonight," and everyone like kind
Of course. Thank you for shutting these people down.
And then after he threw out a few more, Matt Corby starts playing a different song. This dude starts shouting during the song, like
Oh
while
my
the song is
God.
going on, and then multiple people turn around that were near us. We weren't super close to him. We were
Five
a
or
ways
six
in
rows
front of him.
5 or 6 rows away.
Sure, yeah. And then multiple people turn around, and like this guy got like a crowd of people around him being like pointing me like, "You gotta shut
You
up,
don't
dude."
shut the fuck up.
And I could see that he's kind of like, he's swaying and his eyes are kind of closed and his mouth's open. And
Seems
it's
like he's enjoying the attention almost a little bit.
yeah. So
He's just an instigator.
I don't know how that went down. It stopped eventually.
He's dead.
So I would assume someone
He
said
died.
something to security while he was doing the thing, and then he got pulled out. Is what I would guess. But
That checks out.
that was the most balls out one I've had in a while. But I was front and center for M83 in London, and these two people from, actually coincidentally, Australia,
Good eye.
pushed their way all the way to the front a few songs into the show, and were really drunk and very obnoxious to everybody. And but just about 2 full songs went by of them being insufferably awful. And
I don't like that.
a dude, I was right next to the woman, and her guy was right behind her. Natalie was next to me, and the dude it was this dude from the Netherlands. He was super nice, and he leaned over to be like, "Excuse me, can you please be quiet?" And the guy cold cocked him in the face, like arm past me, because I was right there. And when everyone was like, "Oh," the dude's glasses went flying, and I like half jumped over the barricade to flag a security over. And by the time security got, I was like, "This dude just punched this guy." And he's like, "What dude?" And I turned around, and he and the girl were like running back into the crowd. And And I was like, watch for them. Like, if they come back, they are violent and ruining the show for everyone. And I came back, and everybody around us was like, yeah! Like, everyone in that part of the crowd was so stoked that those people left.
The concert has improved.
And the only
That's
M83
great.
song I remember missing because of that was the No Time, the slow one.
That one's great though.
It is, but it's a lower energy point in the set.
Yeah.
So Natalie was pissed because that was her quite
what is
literally
that
her
song?
favorite song. It's called Time, I think. No Time. I think that's what he's saying. I haven't listened to the new album yet. It's out. It's on it's in my Apple Music, and I haven't listened to it yet. Should check it out.
So wait, when new stuff comes out for you, do you like add it to a playlist?
I just add it to my library.
Oh, word.
If I know I'm gonna want to come back to it, and I don't know, man. I'm on YouTube so much for daily listening of things, both podcasts and music, but I forget to like use the streaming services I'm paying for.
Right.
And you know, when they're on there, you're getting a more reliable level of quality and official version of things and stuff when it comes to albums. And
Yeah.
because I don't actually use YouTube Music, even though that's like a sub app within YouTube now.
It essentially is like it allows you to play the audio files from music specific content
Yeah.
without having to have the video associated to it.
Yeah.
Which I think is a great principle.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Do you remember that website called Groove Shark?
Yeah.
That was like one of the first places that people could publicly post their own personal music libraries. Mm-hmm. And then you could just search for a song and it would like essentially just give you a link to a cloud version of their music library's version of that song.
Yeah.
So you could, essentially see everything. I remember I was dedicated to that for like 3 or 4 months. And then it just kind of got too inconvenient because it was laggy and you were listening to shitty like 24... Wait, I don't know what kind of bit rate music it was. It was very low, 16-bit MP3 like version. So,
Well, that'll be one of those funny like campfire story things to talk about because I feel like exponentially day after day, access to the collective library of music is increasing in how many people can have access to it, and but also the copyright and ownership stringency
Yeah.
of recorded things is getting so exponentially like hyper tightened, and people are focused on it. And I've talked a lot about how like I can see in real time Apple and other tech manufacturers are making it very hard to even listen to an audio file.
yeah.
Because it's one of those double-edged sword things where people who create recorded works should get paid when people listen to them. And I'm a musician and I want that to be my career.
Right.
I want that to be part of my career for sure. But on the consumer level, it's like, it's even hard to like listen to something that you recorded yourself sometimes.
Right.
Because the apps and the way the computers that house them give access to people it's becoming very, very difficult.
Yeah.
So I don't know what listening to music is going to be like in 10 years. And that's a huge part of why I never question if I want to buy a vinyl record, because I'm always like, I'll be able to listen to this whenever I want.
As long as I have that machine,
Yeah, if I lose my turntable, then those
Yeah.
are just Frisbees.
as long as that tiny little stylus stays sharp, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I like, dude, it's kind of become dramatized in recent years. A lot of very famous content creators have like gone as far as to get tattoos of this on themselves. But are you familiar with the Voyager vinyl that's out in outer space right now?
No.
All right. So the Voyager, and this is going to be so inaccurate. So from what I understand, the Voyager was a space mission where they launched I think you could call it a satellite. And now a satellite technically orbits something. This was essentially just like a capsule they shot into space that is going to just go and go and go until it can't go anymore. And I'm pretty sure there's some sort of sensor on board that can tell you how far away it is, or like send and receive some sort of very small transmission. unclear about that. Long story short, on board this capsule, the Voyager was sent with the mission to like breach the outer limits of our galaxy or our universe or something. It's essentially just like we were sending a probe out into nothingness.
Okay.
And the way that we chose to communicate information, or one of the ways, because I think there's several things on board the Voyager. One of them is a vinyl record that contains, I think the first minute of the record or something is a regular Morse code transmission of like, it's some form of like explaining what the world is, and like it explains what the Voyager is essentially. Mm-hmm. You know what? I'm gonna bring up a picture of the cover. We're waiting. But it's like this gold record, and this is that. I'll just do this so you can get a clear image of what's on it. But this is essentially an instruction on how to use the included stylus to play back the waveform, and then this breaks down what a waveform is equivalent to binary. It's essentially, and then this is a star map of where Earth is.
Is this a frame from Star Wars after they dropped the bomb into the Death Star?
Right. Yes. This is the graphic design for Star Wars. This is, I think, a hydrogen molecule, because they wanted to communicate like what our basis for measurement is or something. Mm-hmm. And then this explains the flat nature of the record, and then this is like a top-down version. And so this outside dots and dashes that you can see here, I think is everything on this picture is related to one another in a very clever way. It was explained to me at one time and it made sense, but I can't regurgitate it, obviously. But
where'd you learn about this?
I hate to say this, but I think Mr. DeWeird taught us this in 7th
that's
grade.
very cool.
But it was reiterated to me later in college, I think, by Clay Stevenson.
Did Mark DeWeird also teach your class how a combustion engine works?
I think so, yeah.
I think back to that a lot, and I remember him being like, "This is off curriculum, guys, but you all drive cars. It's really important for you to know how they actually work."
Brilliant.
And damned if he wasn't totally right. Sorry, go ahead.
No worries. But long story short, the rest of the record is just recordings of the sounds of Earth. Like,
oh, cool.
They just brought microphones out. They brought microphones into like New York City and London and the rainforest and like the Arctic, and they just like took
the ocean,
and they did recordings of like people laughing, like what it sounds like to laugh. And I think they said like they had a recording in every language of like hello, like we're from planet Earth. Like they record every language saying that.
Yeah.
Then it was like a very creative thing that they did, but that's just out in outer space flying. And if somebody encounters it, they guessed at the time that this would be the best way to convey that, which I think is pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
But
that design has major artistic value too.
Oh yeah.
That was really cool graphic.
Yeah.
Cool story, bro.
It'd be cool to have that like framed in a cool frame.
Sounds like it belongs on our art wall.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Found a cool print of it. Good looks. What's your worst? Oh no, you just told us that you had the Corey Wong experience.
I don't think that was my worst.
So
it was just the most recent.
She's like guttural screaming on a like constant basis.
Just as loud as you can screaming. Like high pitch. Not paying attention to how people are reacting, just like wanting to be the loudest fan possible.
Yeah.
So.
And did anybody say anything?
I mean,
did she get
she seemed to have been there with like
some angry glances.
She seemed to have been there with like a boyfriend who kind of like distracted her by like talking to her, and that seemed to kind of get it to stop. But it was in any major moment you'd get a big like,
yeah.
You know, it was always just kind of for a moment. It wasn't like consistent. There was one concert I was at, and it's stupid I can't remember who it was, but there was somebody in the front row near me that was shrieking the whole time, like nonstop. And eventually somebody was like, shut the fuck up. And it only lasted like 5 minutes, but it was like, I think people were kind of like, how long is this fucking person going to do this?
Yeah.
Like, this is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody's threshold is different, but like you should be able to scream at a concert.
Yeah.
You shouldn't constantly scream at a concert. Like you gotta pick them. You gotta pick your moments of out loud. Other people are hearing me emote.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And people around you should be chill and let those things happen in good faith
Yeah.
to a certain extent. It's part of the experience.
I think in small doses, it's totally appropriate to kind of have any range
Yeah.
of dynamic outburst for a show.
Mm-hmm.
But to sustain any of the extremes of that is just so much of a burden for everybody nearby.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. And anyone who kind of falls in the middle of that threshold to me is totally fine. Like,
You know that acoustic Jackson Browne album that mom and dad love?
yes. Is that the one with looking out at the road rushing under my wheel?
Well, he's got a part 1 and a part 2 from different concerts and they're different set lists. So he might. I don't think Running on Empty is on.
Thank you.
I don't think Running on Empty is on the part 1 that I'm talking about.
Is it the one with the loadout?
No.
They're the first to come and the last to leave.
Did he do Loadout on acoustic?
I mean, I'm pretty sure that version is the one that goes into So won't you stay?
The famous version of that is the full band though. From a concert.
That's what the loadout is.
Yeah.
Full
So
band.
so I'm talking about Jackson Browne's solo, like solo acoustic. He has like a volume 1 and a volume 2.
Okay, I didn't know about that.
Well, it was in one of their cars forever, so we heard it a lot. It's the one that starts with "To the barricades of heaven."
Oh my
where
god!
I'm from.
There was I do remember that point in our childhood.
Yeah. I want to say that came out like late aughts, so it was like a.
That was one of the first times Mom laughed at us pointing out something funny about her record collection.
Oh.
When that would come on in the car, and we both go, and she would always get a laugh out of her.
I think so. But throughout that whole concert, he's bantering in between, talking to the audience, and it's in like Palm Desert, California. So that he's quipping like, "How does it feel to be voted the nicest place to live in America?" And so there is some back and forth, but there's one voice I think prominently 4 or 5 times throughout this recording, either at the very end of a song or the very beginning, is in the back going, "Play the Birds of St. Mark's."
Oh fuck!
But he's actually, it makes me wonder if it was a plant because sometimes he gets his wish granted like 2 or 3 times. Jackson Browne's like, "Oh, wow, that's a deep one. Well, sure, why not?" And people clap. And it's on a recording that was released. So I have to give quite a bit of a leash to the idea that it was all staged. But it was the sort of shouting from the audience during a very obviously acoustic and intimately framed show. A person shouting at a level that would be like completely unacceptable at any other type of car. Like this dude would have gotten thrown out after the first one.
You hear like a sniper shot.
Yeah.
Play.
Yeah.
He's dead. It's all right.
Yeah. So like I sometimes it makes for a funny thing. Great performers will just make lemonade out of the lemons that the audience throws them.
Yeah,
Sometimes,
that's true.
But
sometimes there are some lemons of an audience.
But that particular entire concert recording, it's like, wow, they're letting this dude get away with constant discussion with Jackson Browne.
Yeah. Yeah, for the most part, I've actually had relatively good concert experiences through and through. Like, if there's ever a shitty situation, I guess I just kind of get away from it.
Yeah, assigned seats, you don't have that luxury, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's true. The last show I went to assigned seats for like a big rock show, I think, was with you when we saw Young the Giant.
Tame at Mohegan.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
I didn't even pay attention to anything other than the stage that night, though. That was just that was my mecca.
One thing I've really taken on from my job of presenting classical concerts is that I buy aisle seats now. I look for them when it's assigned seat shows.
It's a good call.
I do believe in the value of them. And it's funny, we do so much that we actually price them higher.
Nice.
But like most arena type shows and stuff that have a whole seating chart, the aisle doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a higher price.
Right.
And one thing I bought aisle seats for Ash and me for Kendrick Lamar on the Damn tour in 2017.
That must have been sick.
And I was stoked that we got them, but then as soon as the show started, the event staff pretty much let people from the nosebleeds like all
just go
flood down into the aisles to like film from the loge. They gave them one song and then they started sweeping them out, but it being on the aisle like sucked in that moment.
Yeah.
By comparison, it was like, oh, I'm up against, like, I wish I was 4 or 5 seats in and this
got a
wasn't
guy's thigh on my chin.
Yeah. So the aisles at like a big crowded arena type show are potentially like not where you want to be seated. But at Mohegan it worked out really nice.
Where did we see Kendrick together? Was that Mansfield?
That was the Top Dog Entertainment summer tour, and I believe it was Mansfield and not Hartford. It would have been one of those two, but I'm pretty sure it was Mansfield. That was with Ash and Etho.
Yep.
And that was Kendrick at the end of a lineup that also had J-Rock, Schoolboy Q. Those are the two that I remember because those were awesome sets.
Didn't
Schoolboy Q was awesome.
No, I'm not. No, I'm thinking of a story Paul told me, and for some reason I can't remember the name of that artist. But I guess he's associated more with Odd Future than he is with Top Dog. But I have one of his vinyls. He does a lot of stuff with Anderson .Paak. Crap. Yeah, it's been a while since I've listened to him. If I can remember his name. Yeah, that was a fucking awesome show. And to see hip hop from the lawn at an amphitheater was actually kind of a neat experience. Like, I thought it was going to be kind of unengaging and that the audience would be louder than the actual like show. Mm-hmm. But nah, that was a full concert experience for sure.
Yeah.
It's just standing on that fucking grassy hill.
Yeah.
That'll take a beating on your knees. When your ankles are just like tipped down the whole time.
Oh yeah, that's a steep grade for your feet to be locked facing downward on.
Yeah, I do wish more people. No, I'm just an old man. I like to sit. I can listen and enjoy something from a seat, but I get why people want to stand up for shit like that. It was a great show though.
It also becomes really enjoyable to watch the drunk deal with that hill as the night goes on.
Oh my god, yeah. Yeah.
It's a people watching like terrarium of like, let's just fill these people with booze and watch them walk around this muddy hill.
It's always muddy at Mansfield.
That's what when I took Ash to her first and only Dave Matthews Band show, and she was, I think, most entertained by watching drunk people slipping and sliding all over the place at an embarrassing level.
Just a bunch
It's
of
like, did these people pay a lot of money to see this concert and they're not even here right now? They're like
exactly
Woodstocking down the hill. It's like that for some people. That's the thing. Did we just clip?
Something just popped. We create a lot of static electricity in these chairs. There's a lot of power supplies tucked in back here. I'm not concerned about it.
Yeah. Okay.
It's happened a lot, and I'm trying to figure out where it's coming from, but I can't yet. Exactly.
From the boat.
It's coming from the boat.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry that was part of your already uncomfortable Corey Wong experience.
Oh, no. I love that show. It was fun.
Yeah, it's tough to be annoyed by somebody who's very authentically really enjoying something.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that was sort of my point. And you know what? That show was also GA, so it would probably be you'd cross the threshold of reasonable to like ask someone to stop enjoying themselves when you have the option to move.
Yeah. Well, not really in the mezzanine. Like I said, it's like watching through a fence.
You know, like we share another one, Tom Segura. We had those people directly next to us that...
Comedy's a little different because heckling is a little different. But
would you call what they were doing heckling?
No, they were just having a loud internal discussion that should have been quiet.
They were
and
loud
whispered.
with each other and not paying attention to the show.
Yep, that's true. That's
And
true.
I was a little peeved that the staff came as close as they did to kicking them out like 3 or 4 times and didn't.
Yeah.
I wish they just had.
Well, weren't they kind of like old, feeble, like elderly, kind of volunteer-looking staff
Yeah.
members?
Yeah.
It was kind of like, I don't know if they'd have the power to take both of these crazy people out of here.
I don't want to be a burden.
I don't want to be a burden. I love the young people.
How many times must we teach you this lesson, old man? Yeah, I mean, they got Tom's attention. I remember Tom
Yeah,
stopped a bit to be like, "Hey, what's going on over there? How
Yeah.
about you shut up?"
Yeah. It was like, thank God he's addressing it.
Yeah.
What were they even arguing about? It was like one of them brought over like the wrong food or something.
Wow. I mean,
Because I remember they had like trays.
I don't remember specific conversational content. I just remember that it was a dude and a girl, and she looked at her phone the entire time. I remember he laughed a lot at the set, but went right from laughing to like speaking volume back and forth with her about their stuff.
Yeah.
And I intentionally tried to block it out because I was trying to listen to Tom Segura. But I don't remember the content itself, but the volume was like, this is, yeah, you can't.
It was like inside voice.
You can't. And I know also they were definitely wasted.
Yeah.
They were really, really very drunk. And they showed up late too. I thought we had open seat. That was the bittersweetness of it. So the show started. Lisa Traeger started doing the opening set, and I was like, oh, we got the open seats next to us. How comfortable.
Yeah.
And then they were seated late and probably coming from like a bar.
Yeah.
And yeah, then we're
You're paying for it. No, you're paying for it. You're paying for it.
and it's and if the funny thing is if we'd been in a comedy club like Laugh Boston or the Comedy Connection in Providence,
Yeah. They would have gotten.
staff would have been on that, and or the comic would have had the opportunity to like involve themselves directly in that. But in a theater, when you're in we were in like row N or something. Like,
It's like
Tom
YouTube
can't,
comments.
Tom can't even see us
Yeah.
from where he's sitting, so he just indiscriminately had to like point that direction at that point and be like, "What's going on over here?"
Yeah. Yeah, that
like-
sucks.
Oh, you definitely can't do that. But yeah, I mean, every time I got to my own threshold of like, I'm going to say something, someone from the venue did come over. And I remember at one point hearing like, one more time, guys, one more time. And you are out of here. And they I think I recall them giving some shit back to the staff too.
They were
but
like, we paid for these seats.
Our favorite-
It was like,
our-
that's not a good argument.
our favorite comedians have always said like a lot of drunk audience members will just get to like, they got me in trouble for laughing. They're kicking me out for laughing at you. Like, that's always what they say they
Yeah.
were doing.
Yeah, but you were laughing and also giving everybody your entire life story at the same time. So fuck you.
Your original point, though, was comedy clubs are different than musical concerts across the board. And that's true. And there are lots of different types of comedy shows, too. But the comedy club vibe is it's like one level of volume below being in a restaurant.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because
yeah.
there's food being served.
You mean one level of volume above? Because the PA is pretty hot in a comedy club.
I mean that in a restaurant, everybody is engaged in conversation with each other at like reasonable talking volume.
Got it.
So if someone's being unruly at a restaurant, they have to really be being unruly for people to notice.
Like, you can order a drink at a comedy club.
Right.
At level where the bartender or where the server can hear you.
But at a comedy club, it's like ambient noise allowed, quiet back and forth server and eating noise totally allowed.
Even though that's something that our favorite comedians have talked about.
Right.
Being really distracting.
Yep. I'll have the Cobb salad. Crunch. But everybody's attention generally is on somebody talking. Mm-hmm. And that talk, that's sometimes a conversational type of stand-up comedy performance, but in general, it's like, unlike a restaurant where everybody's in their own little world. So that's why I say volume is like most people at a comedy show are listening to the comedy and laughing.
Yeah.
Most people at a restaurant are having their own unfiltered conversation at a range of volumes.
Yeah, I
most
get
of
that.
which don't interfere with other people's experience. So yeah, but then at a theater, it's like, yeah, there's ushers. Those aren't servers. Those aren't like, because comedy club staff, I've heard quite a bit about this too. Like they're in that for the love, because they get to hear comedy
they get paid
at
like
their job,
shit, right?
The serving job itself is like, it just seems so much worse than like regular restaurant serving, because you have to be as quiet as possible. You have to max out what you're earning to the extent that you can. A lot of people come to comedy and like either don't want to drink or only want to drink and not order food, or vice versa. And it's just, I feel like that job must suck, but be very fulfilling because you're in it for the love and you get to meet the comics. And,
Yeah.
So at like Laugh Boston, I know the servers are also like the bouncers. Like they're the ones that go over to people who are being too loud. And I don't know if they're like the people that actually like pick you up and carry you out. If you're really being unruly, there might be real security that comes in to do that. But like they are part of that fight
Yeah.
there.
Their entire staff is engaged with keeping the sanctity of the show intact.
Yeah.
That's great. I like that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And at a theater, it's just like, this is like, you're right. It's like it's an usher from like a senior citizen security company.
Excuse me, young man.
And like,
Can you please simmer down?
dude, it's funny. That's how the staff is at like the Garden too. The people
I
that
see you smoking dope up there.
did you, Dolores? No, you didn't.
I saw you. I'll get the police in here. There's no smoking in the building. Do you know what they'll do to you?
Yeah, so I don't know. That was I felt bad. That was like my gift to you was those Tom Segura tickets, and then it like we suffered probably more than anybody else in that theater because they were right next to us.
I remember
for all of that.
I remember enjoying it enough that I reached the numb happy state.
That's good.
Of just seeing a comedy show where the content is so high quality and good and just consistently funny and funny and funny that you're just kind of in like a numb state of just like, you're just enjoying it. You're not laughing really, like,
Yeah.
you're not belly laughing for an hour, but you're just like, wow, this is excellent. Like really, really masterful. I mean, in hindsight, did we identify which one of his comedy specials recorded was like a lot of that material? I think it might have been Ball Hog.
I'll be honest, the bit that I remember the most from that live set was when he was just going in on like, you guys know your mom has like sucked a bunch of dicks in her life, right? You bet you never thought about it, but you know she has, right? He's doing that, like poking at everybody and then like the laughter's getting louder and louder.
Yeah.
I remember that bit being hilarious.
Yeah.
But I kind of lose track of all the like Tom Segura Netflix specials.
He's done a lot.
Yeah. And then I listened to Your Mom's House for a long, long time, and I found that I preferred Tom in the podcast format a little bit to his stand-up comedy, so I think I haven't watched Tom Segura's stand-up in quite a long time.
It's funny.
So I'm not sure what special it came from.
Going back to Tom's comedy specials, I think you'll actually be pleasantly surprised at how polished his new stuff is in kind of like a more loose way.
Yeah.
I guess his setups and punchlines are a little bit more spaced out in a storytelling format than they would be a typical comedy, like setup punchline. Like they're very, you see him coming. But he's very unique. I mean, I just like his sense of humor too. It's like so dark and twisted, and he leans into it extra hard, which is my brand of comedy.
Yeah,
for sure. But I do have to say Bert Kreischer's new special, Razzle Dazzle, is outstanding.
I haven't watched it yet.
I think you'll really like it. It's essentially him just telling stories about his family.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he does best, because his family is just a hilarious bunch, and he just stokes these flames. He tells a story about him going to a school fundraiser that was run by a guy who was raising money for an underprivileged school. So none of the people from their like Hollywood school wanted to pay money if it wasn't going to their school. So Bert bought all of the guys' ticket quota which was like 650 tickets. And he won all the prizes. And he tells that story in the series of he talks about what it was like going up for each prize. It's a great bit. Yeah, the whole special's great. Like, I think you should definitely see it.
Okay.
I think you'll like it a lot.
Fair. Yeah. It's cool. Jay got to see him at the Hanover Theater.
Yeah. I forgot he went to the Hanover Theater.
Yeah.
That's not a bad venue for Bert Kreischer.
It was like, I think all but sold out.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And Jay said he was up in the balcony and it was still great,
Hell yeah.
which is, it's good to hear.
I'd like to see a show from those seats, because I've seen shows with you. Did we see Brian Regan from the box seat, or did we see it from like really up close in the front row? I think it was up close.
We saw Brian Regan from the floor.
Yeah.
Way up front.
All right, so I've seen a show from the floor. I've seen a show from the box. I've seen a show from, I guess, technically the mezzanine. I'd love to see a show from the upper balcony.
Yeah.
Or those bleacher seats. It looks like it would be cool.
It's arguably cooler to see some like full stage theater or dance type of shows from up there, because if you're way up close on the floor, you are like you're very close to the people on the stage, but you're limited by like your macro view of.
It's a very dynamic viewing experience.
Yeah.
You're like looking around a lot.
Yeah, I love the loge for that reason, because you still feel pretty close, but
There is a little bit of left-right attention that you can place.
you get some aerial. You see the performer as part of the architecture of the theater, which is really cool. Yeah,
It's very opera. Holding a skull.
yeah.
Kill the wabbit, kill the wabbit.
Spewing magic helmet.
Spewing magic helmet. Those would be good drops.
They should be on the board for sure.
Yeah.
Should get a whole Bugs Bunny quadrant.
Same from the Barber of Seville. Oh, there's no dialogue in that, is there?
Well, there's Bugs Bunny singing.
There, you're nice and clean. Yeah.
Although your face looks like it may have gone true, a machine. We played that in university orchestra, the overture,
I think I did too.
and our conductor was like, he's like, I see you out there. I see you all doing the Bugs Bunny lyrics. He's like, this is more serious than that. I was like,
No.
oh, come on.
No, you're wrong.
Let
It's
me
not.
enjoy doing this.
This is the best.
Yeah. Roped it back to orchestral music somehow. It happens. It happens on Familiar Sounds.
Well, it's a familiar sound.
It is for both of us.
How about you kick us with that outro, dog? And we'll
Hey, brother.
talk about another week next week with the Familiar Boys. They got familiar sounds. We got familiar topics. We got familiar hounds.
Email us cool stuff
Yeah.
at familiarsoundspodcast@gmail.com.
Ooh, there's a little sync. Ooh. You got that trigger off by one beat.
Oh, that's pretty cool though.
I do like it. Why did I like that more?
Oh man, you're killing me. Ableton playback, man. Not always what I want.
Yeah, it's got a few modes.
Plug yourself.
Bad luck, good vibes on the Instagram. badluckgoodvibes.com on the internet. Familiar Sounds Podcast at gmail.com. You heard it here, folks.
At Blue Light Bandits, at Ethan Bates Orchestra on the gram. Come see Blue Light Bandits release our EP titled Sadness, Madness, Pride, and Greed at the Lizard Lounge on March 31st. Doors at 8, shows at 9. And I'll see you next week.
Yeah. Hey, brother. Hey. Ooh. I like that with the bass pulled out.